Stay tuned for a transmission from the United States of Higher Consciousness. Please share far and wide.
Smoke and mirrors, stripes and stars, stolen for the cross in the name of God. Bloodshed, genocide, rape.
Episode 6.
The cold continent latchkey child.
There was no American Revolution.
Say what?
The Roman Empire done passed it down. Imported and tortured the workforce and never healed the wounds or shook the curse off. Now the grown-up Goliath nation holding open auditions for the part of David. Can you feel?
By now, everybody on Earth has heard the story of the supposed first American president, George Washington, and the supposed revolution against the British monarchy. The conventional story behind the American Revolution is very rousing and intended to inspire nationalism and patriotism in the citizenry of the old American colonies.
The British are coming! The British are coming!
Give me liberty or give me death!
Noble men of justice coming together to forge a new nation. I'm sorry. I meant rich, white, landowning, seemingly Christian men coming together to forge an alliance of rich, white, landowning, seemingly Christian men.
That sounds about right.
And wouldn't you know it, every signer of the Declaration of Independence was a rich, white, seemingly Christian landowning male. You see, if you were a woman in the American colonies, the forefathers said,
Screw you.
What if you were African American? To you, the forefathers said,
Screw you.
But what if you were a native, indigenous, tribal person?
Screw you.
So if women had to struggle for over 150 years to achieve any liberty whatsoever, where was the revolution for them? It took African Americans almost 200 years to achieve even the slightest shred of their own liberty. Where was the revolution for them all this time? And last, but definitely not least, the natives who were here before us and their descendants, still struggling hundreds of years later for any shred of liberty. Where has the revolution ever been for them? And now those groups have been joined by the Mexicans, the Muslims, and the homosexuals, as having to fight more now for their liberties and freedoms than ever before. And now this clown claims to be making America great again. But we all know that it's never been great. So what's he doing? He's keeping the rich, white, landowning, seemingly Christian male in power by dividing the rest of us. Let's talk about old Georgie boy again, shall we? Legend has it he's our first American president, but the reality is something much different. Here's a fascinating image of Mr. Washington, some kind of temple. What does that say? It says Washington as a Freemason. Before there was George Washington, there was the Continental Congress, which met from 1774 until 1776 when they declared independence and the colonies became United States. Little do people know that the word president actually means one who presides, and in this case, over the Continental Congress. And in fact, 14 presidents existed before George Washington. Let's get to know them, shall we? Peyton Randolph, the first American president of the First Continental Congress, served 2 very short terms because of failing health and didn't live to see the Declaration of Independence. Pre-constitutional presidencies typically didn't last long, and Henry Middleton's was no exception, filling in for Peyton Randolph when he was sick. And that leads us to the wealthy merchant and rebel leader, John Hancock, who is officially the first American president of the new United States, overseeing the signing of the Declaration of Independence and serving 2 widely spaced out terms. The slave trader Henry Laurens succeeded John Hancock as president and was a signatory to the Articles of Confederation, which were passed under him on November 15, 1777. Next is the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and the first Secretary of State, John Jay, writer of some of the Federalist Papers and a main supporter of the upcoming new Constitution. The self-made Samuel Huntington of Connecticut is the sixth American president, who's the first president under the Articles of Confederation, which went into effect on March 1, 1781. Thomas McKean signed the Declaration of Independence and helped draft the Articles of Confederation, and served as president when George Washington returned with news of his victory over Britain. John Hanson served the first full presidential term under the Articles of Confederation and remained an anti-federalist and opponent of the Constitution until his dying day. Career diplomat and former Secretary of Foreign Affairs Elias Boudinot served the new United States as president by deftly managing international affairs for the young country. The 10th American president is Thomas Mifflin, who signed the treaty with Great Britain, ending the Revolutionary War. He's also known for lining his pockets and being a drunkard. Next up is Richard Henry Lee, who should be remembered as a premier opponent of slavery when almost no one else was. He also opposed the Constitution and called it undemocratic. Next up is Nathaniel Gorham, best known for being a strong supporter of centralized federal government and actually oversaw a period where Congress considered putting in a monarchy. Arthur St. Clair is the only foreign-born American president. Born in Scotland, he warned of a growing bureaucracy that would one day confiscate nearly a quarter of the citizenry's income. A strong supporter of the Bill of Rights, Cyrus Griffin served as the last president before the Constitution was ratified and George Washington was sworn into office. By the way, did you happen to see any non-rich people yet? Non-white people? How about non-seemingly Christian people? Non-men?
Take all the time that you need.
So it can be said beyond any shadow of a doubt that in fact George Washington is the 15th American president, and that if no female American, African American, or tribal American had any rights or liberties or any independence, that in fact there was no revolution.
We went from King George to King George. We went from one very rich, white, landowning, seemingly Christian male to another rich, white, landowning, seemingly Christian male. Where is the revolution in that?
The first major test of the supposedly constitutional government was the Whiskey Rebellion, beginning in 1791 and coming to a head in 1794. Whiskey makers in Pennsylvania rose up to challenge Washington's new whiskey tax. Washington rode out with 15,000 militia members to suppress the insurrection, demonstrating early on just how the government would handle free speech and free assembly. What was that about King George? It reminds me of a scene from Monty Python.
Why? Shut up! Will you shut up? Ah, now we see the violence inherent in the system. Shut up! Oh, come and see the violence inherent in the system! Help! Help! I'm being repressed! Bloody peasant! Oh, what a giveaway! Did you hear that? Did you hear that, eh? That's what I'm on about. Did you see him repressing me? You saw it, didn't you?
Stockholm Syndrome. It's a condition that causes hostages to develop a psychological alliance with their captors, and that's precisely what the colonies demonstrated by using the same colors in their new flag as the Union Jack British flag. That's not a rebellion. Did you know that My Country 'Tis of Thee is the same melody as God Save the Queen? Here, have a listen. Maybe there was a revolution, it just never ended, and this is it, still going down.
Smoke and mirrors, stripes and stars, stoning for the cross in the name of God. Bloodshed, genocide, rape and fraud, written to the pages of the law, good law. The cold continent latchkey child ran away.